Hey friends, Bill Adams here, the director of the George Whitefield program. What is an itinerant evangelist? What is the intention or the implication of being an itinerant evangelist? Well, Reverend Whitefield gives us the clues. There's a couple things that he does. He preaches a lot of places. He works with a variety of churches. Typically, they all believe in the need for the new birth. He interacts with people from the church's clergy and so forth, and he interacts with people at all levels, from coal miners to his college in Savannah to Ben Franklin to the King of England. And he preaches to Countess Huntington's, quote, wealthy friends, and he preaches to the coal miners. And so, see, what he's doing here is he's, quote, leavening really the entirety of his itinerant world. And so part of the goal in understanding leavening your itinerant world, let's just take a city. And just let me use a personal example of being in Atlanta and preaching in Atlanta basically for 15 years straight, going to seemingly almost every concert and Hi-Fi Buys Amphitheater and Phillips Arena and Chastain Park and not concerts, but games at the Georgia Dome. That's what it was then. Events in Centennial Park, Piedmont Park. And in that process, I didn't always see it this way, but I was leavening the whole area by the presence of preaching Christ in so many places. And then that process, that itinerant leavening process, I was aware of other people around me, police, ticket scalpers, fans, people I would see in different places. And God began to give me an understanding that, hey, your leavening effect, your salt and lighting effect, if you will, from your itinerating is you're interacting with all these people. And so I can personally directly relate to what Whitefield was doing. So I'm not on George Whitefield's level, but I can relate to what he was doing. And that's what itinerating is really about. Itinerating is not just going somewhere and one or two places and preaching every week and going home and just coming back with stories. Now, your job is to get to know the people around these places where you're at, to be aware of people who work at places and interact with them and greet them and be friendly to them, pray with them, preach, all these things, so that all of a sudden they say, hey, that's Bill from the Falcons game, or that's Bill from Phillips Arena. I saw that guy down at this or that festival. I've seen that guy. That's the guy from so-and-so. And that's what you're after. And the leavening effect, because when people see you, they begin to equate you with the gospel and vice versa. That's what you're after. Hey, that's the guy that preaches down there. And that's what you're after, as opposed to like this more sort of I'm going to step through the door for a minute, come out of the door, or just start and stop mentality. No, you're an evangelist. This is what we teach in the Whitefield program, that really, when you transition into this work, you become the minister, and people see you that way. And you might say, well, I'm not. Yeah, you are. That's how people see you. And if you say you're called to do this work, then God's called you to be an ambassador for Christ, a minister of reconciliation. That's what you are. And you have to be aware of what goes on around you. And therefore, that should create in you a desire to evangelize in more places in your city. And that's kind of what bursts the, quote, need or potential or goal for being full-time, to be able to have the time to be at these different venues in your city. You know, if it takes you an hour to drive from one place to other, you live in a big metro area, so be it. If you ride the subway for 45 minutes, hey, you're leavening the area. If I lived in London, I love London. That's what I would do, man. I would have a rotation of tube stops and sporting events, and that whole city, man. You know, honestly, it's, you know, that whole city, I could become well known. I know how to do it now, probably within about 30 to 90 days. They say, hey, that's that guy that's really birthed out of being available to preach all the time, being at key locations around a city, and then being at select events at different venues. And so that's what itinerating is. And hopefully in that process, I can get to know people from socioeconomic, all types, and religious, non-religious, Christian, non-Christian groups, and be the evangelist to those people. You see this well articulated in the biographies of Whitefield that Arnold Alomar wrote. And so, but this is the goal of being an itinerant evangelist, to leaven a large area with your presence and be aware of that's what you're doing, and be driven to preach in more places more often. Thank you.